Hello there, this is Miriam, holistic life coach and mind body practitioner from Pain Outside the Box. And the topic of today's video will be insecurity and its link with chronic symptoms. So in one of my recent videos, I spoke about trauma, which causes the individual to develop certain personality traits that cause increased anxiety later in life and a predisposition to developing also psychosomatic mind-body symptoms. So today I'm going to get a little bit into detail into one personality trait that develops as a result of these traumas that we experience typically in childhood, and that's the sense of low self-worth and insecurity. Because I find that in my work with my clients, I notice that a lot of them are actually suffering from insecurity. And a lot of them are actually really successful people and hardworking people. But the thing is, insecurity can haunt us throughout life. If we're not aware of it, we might not even realize of the damage that it can do, both to our own success and also to our own body when it comes to chronic symptoms and other mental health problems like anxiety and depression. So some people are quite aware that they feel insecure. Most people are not aware actually of how insecure they feel because they have built their life in such a way as to avoid this sense of threat that's coming from insecurity. So for example, people who are perfectionists, they might think that, they just want to do their best at all costs, right? But really perfectionism stems from a sense of insecurity. They want to avoid criticism or failure at all costs. Or they might think that, what they're doing is never good enough. So they keep on trying to be perfect and they try to do something as best they can, get obsessed about the results, and that's stemming from insecurity, right? Other people might say like, oh, I'm quite okay now with myself. I'm happy with what I do. I'm doing well in my career, in my business. But then they end up feeling this sense of self-doubt or insecurity as they scroll on someone else's Facebook or Instagram, and they start wondering if someone else is actually doing their thing better than they are. Okay? And they start comparing themselves. That's also a sense of insecurity. Or some people might be doing well at their job, their manager likes them and all that stuff, but then they have this one little conflict with a client and suddenly they feel so distressed and anxious, and that shows that they are quite vulnerable. As soon as they encounter a challenge, as soon as maybe even they make a mistake, they cannot handle it, and that's also coming from insecurity. So one thing I want to say is that really and truly, if you're scared of making mistakes, I'm not even sure that mistakes exist, because I feel that mistakes are just actions taken from misinformation, right? So mistakes are a result of misinformation, of you having been somehow misinformed at that point, you not knowing better at that point. So there is no use on blaming yourself for your mistake at this point. It will only cause more insecurity as you start fearing making more mistakes in the future. It will only cause guilt and frustration and ultimately inner rage. And that's a great recipe for developing mind-body syndrome, of course. One other aspect of insecurity that a lot of people deal with is the inability to take decisions. Okay, so some people struggle with making decisions, even small decisions, and that's coming from a sense of self-doubt. They cannot trust themselves to make the right decision. They cannot trust that whatever decision they make, there's probably going to be something to learn anyway. Okay, they just cannot trust to make a decision based on the information that they already have. And it's true, certain decisions cannot be made just spur of the moment. You have to do your research. Sometimes you have to even trust your gut feeling. But if you find yourself frequently asking other people for their opinion about a decision that you feel you want to take, that's a sign of insecurity, right? And also, if you tend to be easily swayed by someone else's opinion, if you tend to be easily convinced otherwise by someone else, so for example, you tell someone, oh, I feel that I ought to take a break this month because I'm feeling burned out. And this other person tells you, oh, maybe you don't even need to take a break. Maybe you just need to kind of do something else, or, anything, whatever. If you're easily swayed by this other person's opinion, no matter how genuine it might be, that shows that there's a lack of insecurity about the kind of decisions that you should be empowered to take for yourself, okay? And ultimately, developing chronic symptoms is a sign that you are somehow feeling unempowered, right? Because there's a huge sense of helplessness behind chronic pain and behind other symptoms like anxiety and depression. So even though your decision might be a decision that someone else may not have taken, or might not even be the best decision in the end, the fact that you have taken a decision is often good enough to give you that sense of empowerment, even though later on you might decide otherwise or change something. Okay, because it's extremely important that you do not keep yourself in a state of indecision, because it breeds lack of empowerment, and it breeds more and more insecurity because you feel like you don't know how on earth you're going to make your life better. Okay, a small decision can make you feel better today. It can make you feel better next month. Maybe next year it will no longer work, and that's okay. You will need to do something else. But at least for today, you've taken a decision or an action that has given you a sense of empowerment. And this is what you need to do if you're dealing with chronic pain. Powerless as much as you feel, you need to seek something that gives you a sense of empowerment. And one final thing I'd like to discuss in this video is the people you're around and how secure or insecure they make you feel. Because from experience, I know that insecure people tend to attract individuals in their life that will feed their sense of insecurity. Okay, so you might have a manager who doesn't trust you, who micromanages everything, and that will give you a sense that your work always needs to be checked, that you can't function autonomously, that you're not good enough. Okay, so if you notice that you're in these kind of situations, more often than not, there's something that needs to be changed. As I said, you need to seek more empowerment. If you have a family member that is constantly making you doubt your own decisions, that is constantly telling you what you should or shouldn't do, no matter how genuine his or her intentions are, this is probably a situation that needs to end. This is probably the time for you to say, thank you, but I need to trust myself on this one. Okay? And trust yourself fully, even to the extent that you might know that your decision might not work out. But at least you have taken a decision. You have taken action. Okay? You have started to trust yourself. And there can be almost no improvement in health and in chronic pain if you do not trust yourself. Because this also ties into the process involved in TMS healing and mind-body syndrome. I mean, it's a brave journey to take because you have been to all sorts of doctors and specialists. You've been told you should do this, you should do that, you should not do this, you should do that. And now here you are learning about mind-body syndrome, learning about TMS, and having to do the work yourself, having to make sense of things yourself, and sometimes having to take certain decisions yourself. Okay? And that requires a lot of bravery, and ultimately it will give you that sense of empowerment. You will start to trust yourself. In the process, you will start to trust your own body as well. You would start to believe that, hey, just because a doctor told you that you can never do your sport again, well, maybe actually you can, right? So it opens up so many possibilities when we start to feel that we can trust ourselves and our own inner gut feelings, our own worth, right? And this is not to say that you should never seek a doctor's opinion, of course, if something is really worrying or urgent. Of course, you should. You shouldn't ever take decisions blindly. But what we often find in TMS recovery is that people get better when they start to trust themselves based on the information, of course, that they have already been learning. Okay, so that was all from me for today. I encourage you to evaluate your own sense of insecurity by the way you behave in your day-to-day life. So start small, start noticing your habits, your personality traits, and you can definitely work up towards more progress from there. Okay, that's all from me for today. I wish you all a lovely rest of the week. Bye-bye.